Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special Smarktober edition of the Occupy Pro Wrestling podcast. I'm Alex Smiley, here to talk about wrestling and horror with one of my all-time faves, a former CHIKARA Grand Champion and the Broadsword of Nazmaldun himself, Hallowicked.
Alex, all glory, Nazmaldun. All glory to you. It's great to be here. Thank you.
All glory to Nazmaldun. I'm very happy to have you here. As like I said, one of my faves, and when Uh, guess I kind of just gonna kind of get into it a little bit here. When I found out you were actively seeking out the pro wrestling side of horror, that was right in my wheelhouse. So, uh, got some questions for you, and then we'll chat from there. My first question, because this wouldn't be a wrestling podcast without asking this question. How did you discover wrestling?
Understood. We always have to get the wrestling stuff out of the way first. Uh, Probably like most people, just drifted in and out, and you eventually see something that you latch onto. And for me, that was when I saw ECW. They would play it, uh, basically hour-long infomercials that would have one match. Are you? I don't know what area you're from. Did you get ECW on Channel 48?
The closest thing to ECW that I had was the final days of XPW on the West Coast. There was one episode of their weekly show. The one episode that I caught, the very tail end of was when Shane Douglas announcing that they were moving XPW to Philadelphia. So that's about as close to ECW that I got
Okay.
growing up.
Okay, so different area. So ECW's program consisted of basically it was an hour-long infomercial that would have like one match on it, and one of the matches was Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis. They're 2 out of 3 falls. I saw that and my mind was blown. They looked like they were from another planet. This is not what I had understood pro wrestling was up until that point, and from there I was hooked.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. Um, it's funny. The more I think about it, the other closest thing to ECW had was the 2006 version, and that's about as
Wow.
much as I'm gonna touch on there. It was
You would.
it made for an interesting Tuesday night, especially when they found the first half of their show going head to head with Wrestling Society X.
You know what? They had vampires on that show,
They
so
had
I can't
vampires
really
on.
complain.
Yes.
It should have been more in my wheelhouse, but you know what? They didn't have people going through stages. They didn't have Bam Bam Bigelow. They didn't have Taz. They didn't have what the things that made ECW ECW.
Right, right. So, on that note, the Smarktober is all about looking at the crossroads of wrestling and horror. And on that note, how did you discover horror?
So that should be what every single moment of every day is about: is finding the crossroads between pro wrestling and horror. That's my philosophy. Uh, so I mean, again, probably like most people, uh, probably saw something that I was not ready to comprehend. I shouldn't have been watching, and I saw it. And people's reaction to that is usually either I'm never watching a horror movie again, or they're traumatized in the way where I gotta watch more of this. And I was the latter. Uh,
Which sometimes applies to pro wrestling as well.
I think they're very very closely related. You either see something, you say I'm out, or you're like you see Ray and Psychosis getting filthy on the ECW floor,
Oh
and you're
man.
like I gotta see more of this. So yeah, I think probably earliest thing I remember, and my memory's terrible. I literally don't remember many years of my life. So I don't know how old I am. I don't know where I'm from. Well, I do remember seeing Pet Cemetery
Oh,
way before
nice.
I was old enough to understand what was going on, and just being horrified and disturbed and asking when's Pet Cemetery 2 coming out.
Nice, nice. Oh, I've seen that one, Pet Cemetery. Very.
That's a must see, right?
Yes, yes, it is. Very good stuff.
Just so many parts in that movie. I mean, we have to do spoiler alerts for movies from
Mm,
1989?
no, no, I know. No spoiler. We're good. We can definitely talk about movies as old as Pet Cemetery.
Okay, so yeah, obviously, the kid getting run over by a truck.
Oh gosh.
If that didn't stick with you, then probably uh, the wife's sister in
Yeah.
bed.
Oh
If that didn't
gosh.
stick with you, there's 10 other things in that movie that
Uh,
you know.
and of course credit. So, I gotta be honest. Sometimes I forget the actor's name. You know how that goes. But
Yeah.
the man who many people from the '60s and on would probably recognize as Herman Munster,
Hmm.
being
Jude. Wait, is it Jude Hirsch? No, Judd
mm,
Hirsch. No, not Judd Hirsch.
yeah, no,
What is that?
but this guy warning, this guy giving the warning of not not burying someone in the pet cemetery because of the effects that could cause, but also realizing that bringing the guy to the cemetery in the first place immediately was gonna set off a whole chain of events.
Right.
You
He
know,
took a man in the depths of grief and guilt and said, "Hey, here's a way to undo all this. Don't do it." I think that guy might be the villain of the movie.
exactly. It's like
What was he expecting?
your top antagonists are the cemetery itself
Mhm.
and that guy.
Fred Gwynn. Fred
There we
Gwynn.
go, Fred Gwynn. Yes,
Sorry.
who's also very good in my cousin Vinny, but that's a
The
whole
judge,
different.
right? Yeah.
Yes. Oh gosh.
So wait, do you think is Pet Cemetery a prequel to the Munsters?
Uh.
This is how Herman Munster became Herman Munster. He's
there's a fan theory for you. Gonna write
Someone's
that
got to look
down.
into this.
Someone's gonna overanalyze that, and it'll be great.
There's
Uh,
probably already a 4-hour YouTube documentary that breaks it
uh,
all down. Somehow, Pascal is Grandpa Munster. Got run over jogging.
oh gosh, that's great. That's gonna make for that'll make for a fun topic for sure. Now this now I do realize how almost silly or at least obvious this question might be to ask you. But what influence, either directly or indirectly, would you say that horror's had on your career?
So it's difficult to say. There's bits and pieces in there that are direct rip-offs from horror that I just threw in there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so for example, the my theme song,
Mm.
the one that had like some guttural screams over it,
Mm-hmm.
used it probably like 2015 to 18 maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a direct. Have you ever seen Lords of Salem?
I have not. I've only seen the poster for it.
Okay, well, that's you might not want to go further than that. So, not my favorite movie, but there's the main character receives a record, like a mysterious record, and when
Mm.
she puts it on, it plays this song. And if you just look up the song from Lords of Salem, that's the inspiration. I took that to my musician and said, "Can you make something like this?" And they nailed it. So it's
Nice.
similar to that. It's just so weird, so otherworldly. I was like, I need to have that as my music, something close. I wish I could take that exactly, but I think that's a little too on the nose.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
so
that's
that's
awesome.
something I did a maybe before cinematic wrestling was invented. Tim Donst and I did a brawl inside a furniture store.
Oh,
Are
oh
you
yeah.
familiar with this?
I am. I think I've seen bits of it. I'd have to. I've been meaning to track down the source, but I do remember seeing bits of it and hearing about that. And like, yeah.
I don't know if that's available anywhere.
Oh,
Uh,
sheesh. Okay,
it's probably maybe Tim Donst has a YouTube, probably.
maybe.
But the ending of that is he throws me off a second story building essentially.
Oh
I'm
gosh.
laying there down. He looks away. He looks back, and I'm gone. Which is again a direct ripoff of Halloween. Mike
Yes.
Myers getting shot multiple times and falling off the balcony, and then when they look, he's gone. So it's hard to like I don't want to steal dialogue. My favorite horror villains are ones that don't talk.
Mm,
So I don't
yeah.
want. There's not dialogue I want to take directly from them. There's not, and a lot of these guys they're invincible, which
Right.
doesn't make for a very interesting wrestling match if your opponent is completely invincible.
Yeah. I
To
mean,
a degree,
yeah.
sure, but if I'm, if no offense can affect me, uh,
Right.
that's
It's like
great.
it's like at some point where's the drama, right?
Right. There's got to be some drama, and you can't have that if you're Jason Voorhees in a wrestling ring. So
Which I feel like someone should have told the I feel like somewhere out there there is a Jason Voorhees
yeah, Jason
type here.
Terrible from FMW, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Yes.
yeah. Yeah, there was
They're literally yeah, there's literally cuz I will admit I started getting him mixed up with at least one of the Leatherface
there's a
characters
Leatherface too,
from
right?
Mexico. Yeah. Like
Okay.
you've had
Yeah.
Leatherface, you've had there might even be a Freddy somewhere in there, but
It's got
certainly
to be.
like for some reason Leatherface seemed like a very popular gimmick. You know, it was
Yeah.
like
Well,
you know. But yeah, so yeah, to your point, yeah, invincibility not super great, but there's obviously elements of that still work.
yeah. Do you remember, were you around for? I don't know what area when Chikara was running. Were you in the Philadelphia area, or you're strictly West Coast remote?
I'm strictly West Coast. When when Chikara had it shut down, for example, I found myself being a part of online rallies rather than say showing up to a skate park in Philly. But I'm definitely familiar with some Chikara history.
Okay, so this is more Chikara adjacent.
Hmm.
Uh, did you ever hear about the Monster Mash shows?
I have not. How much?
So, the owner of the arena, a guy named Roger, would promote these shows where always around Halloween, where there were actual like Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees characters wrestling against wrestlers.
Oh my gosh, that's great. That sounds like that sounds like a fun horror version of I can't remember the name of it now. There's a there's a wrestling promotion that focuses on doing like Comic Cons, and they do like literal cosplay type
Yes, yeah,
scenario. So this
they do
sounds like
like
a
all the video game characters, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, exactly, same thing, just with a
with
bunch of horror
horror.
characters.
That's awesome. I like that. I like the
Yeah,
sound of that.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think Jason was in several of these matches, and he's probably unstoppable.
Oh man, that's awesome. So
Again, just another thing that's probably lost to time. I don't know if these shows were even
true.
recorded.
This is true. Yeah. Sometimes some the search might not always be fruitful, but it's still worth a try. You know.
It, I don't know. It's probably something you had to be there live for. I don't think
Oh, that's
you're
true.
gonna
That's true.
go back and see any 5-star wrestling at a
I
Monster
mean,
Mash.
I mean, I mean, we had a, I mean, slight sidetrack. There was a little company called Five Star Wrestling. They didn't necessarily have 5-star wrestling matches, so
They probably at least attempted it. We had Freddy Krueger doing like bits. It wasn't.
hey, that's got to be worth at least 3 stars, though.
In my book, sure.
yeah, it's like because isn't part of the excitement of a wrestling match the ring psychology. Sometimes the ring psychology is it's in the bits.
For me, absolutely.
So I so I'm gonna circle back around here. We've talked of you uh you've 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 obviously sought out for lack of a better way of explaining this, you've sought out pro wrestling and pro wrestling moves from a variety of horror films.
Mm.
So I want to touch on that and be kind of first and foremost, what are some of your favorite horror films?
I mean, yeah, the finding wrestling in horror films was just a side effect of watching 10 horror films every day for the last 3 years.
Oh my gosh,
Uh, but it's always hard to pick favorites.
that's fair.
But I'm a big Evil Dead fan.
Oh yes.
Particularly Evil Dead 2 is my favorite
Hmm.
horror movie of all time. But
I
I'm
mhm.
I'm I'm into one, the new remake they just did.
Oh yeah.
Rise, not a remake.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the
Yeah.
remake they did a couple years ago. That was probably 15 years ago by now. The TV series Army of Darkness. If it's Evil Dead in that universe, I'm on board.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I love that. I was gonna say I think Evil Dead 2 is probably the peak of at least the early franchise, because like the first Evil Dead, great, but like I feel like there was something to the sequel where it's like you started to lean a little bit more into the comedy side of it as well, just because like largely because of Ash's quips, but it's
Mhm.
like, and it also helps that you know the beginning of Evil Dead 2 basically retcons at least some of the story of the first Evil Dead, so there's always that little bit.
I mean, yeah, essentially they had a budget more than $0 that they had on Evil Dead 1, and they did incredible things. There's movies with multi-million dollar budgets that could not begin to touch the stuff they were doing.
Yeah,
It's oh man, I get like choked up thinking about how good that movie.
yeah. No, honestly, it's really good. Now I was gonna say I do like. It's funny because like I've seen people kind of up and down about the Evil Dead remake of I believe 2013. So
2013,
yeah, roughly a decade ago.
good
But
God.
yeah. So I personally, it's funny because I liked it as far as like a more almost straight up horror and like
Mhm.
more adjusted to kind of modern horror compared to
Absolutely.
the original. But it's like, and to me that just means, that's just a sign of like every movie kind of has its place, has its fans, kind of thing.
Yeah, it wasn't offensive to the original fans, and yeah,
Hmm.
it was just updated enough. But I mean, yeah, that scene where it's just
Yeah.
raining blood.
Oh
It's like
gosh.
that's
Yeah.
something probably Sam Raimi would have done if he had, again, more
Had the
than
money.
any
Yeah. Had the
$0.
budget. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, let's just have it raining blood the entire movie.
Uh.
Uh,
So
did you see Rise? You see the newest one?
I, you know what? I have not, but I'm definitely planning to, ahead of Halloween, especially. I'm
Yeah.
very excited to see. Like, truthfully, I have my own little backlog of movies that I still need to see, and Evil
Mhm.
Dead Rises is up there because I've heard really good things about it.
Yes, I went in ready to hate it and was just blown away. It was great.
That's awesome. I'd say that sometimes that's the best that could happen. Like because some people may try to lower their expectations and then like, oh, it's actually, but it's like if sometimes I feel like if you go in expecting to hate something,
Mhm.
it kind of sometimes it backfires in like the way of like, oh, maybe this was a good film, but I still, mm, you know, kind of like some wrestling critics online, just expecting to hate something, and just but like you said, sometimes you'll find that it actually well exceeds those expectations.
Yeah, sometimes I mean, expectation is the mother of something. There's a saying, isn't there? The mother of disappointment, probably.
Probably. So yeah, so on that note, going back, so quick, yeah, so circling back around, in your search for pro wrestling moves, do you have any particular favorites that you've seen from a movie? Because I'm very curious because I was looking at this list and I was like, and just as a quick note for the listener and viewer that on this page, if a movie has indeed had a pro wrestling move that is highlighted in orange, and that's exciting to me. So I'm very curious about at least one of your favorite moves you've seen in these movies.
So you're asking my favorite move that I've seen in the movies, or my
Yes.
favorite movie that I've seen looking for movies?
Um, if they're different, if you have
Hmm.
different answers for
Okay.
that, you're welcome to explore both. But yeah, I'm just really curious. Like, I guess I'm at the heart of this question, I'm trying to see exactly what kind of pro wrestling action we're getting out of these movies. Because I, I'll just say, like, I'm not sure if there's any specific movie, but usually like I see when I hear that a horror movie has pro wrestling in it, if it's not about wrestling, like say Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies
Mhm.
or WrestleManiac or one of those, if it's not about wrestling, I'm expecting the wrestling move to be a drop kick, maybe a clothesline. But I'm curious to see if there's anything beyond that in your searches.
So let me preface it by saying you mentioned earlier, probably before we started recording, pro wrestlers versus zombies,
Mm-hmm.
right? If a movie is strictly featuring wrestling, it doesn't count
That's okay.
because
That's fair.
that's a dead giveaway that there's gonna be wrestling in it, right?
That's true.
There's a Vampiro movie that has Norman Smiley in it, and there's the
Oh my
full-on
gosh.
matches in the movie. So
Oh my gosh.
that's cheating to me. So I'm not gonna
Yeah,
count those.
that's fair.
Okay. Glad we're on the same page there. So
Yeah.
I'm looking through my list, and I don't know why it's not on here. There's a movie that is on, I think, a Netflix movie called Night Shift or The Night Shift.
Oh.
Maybe. Hang on.
Okay.
Like I said, my memory is terrible. Oh, it's Day Shift. That's why I couldn't find it. I was looking under N. A movie with
That's fair.
Jamie Foxx called
Oh.
Day Shift, and who's the Franco brother? That's not the real Franco. Dave Franco.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like a Dave. Sounds like a Dave movie. Yeah.
Dave Franco takes a cascading Yoshi tonic.
Oh my gosh. That's that's phenomenal.
And let me tell you, I looked through the credits. There had to be a pro wrestler that was a consultant or a
There's
stunt
gotta be.
coordinator. I couldn't find it. Maybe they were using their real name, and it was obscured. Yeah, and it's so smooth. It's done by a professional wrestler. I'm convinced.
It's gotta be. Probably an indie worker who got paid
I,
whatever Hollywood's version of a hot dog and a handshake is. But hey, you know what? They got the move in there, and it's there for
that
it's there for the
person
world to see.
needs to be booked.
Yes,
Because I especially I mean I'm assuming it was Dave Franco's stunt double that took the move, but get that guy on board too. Book these
for
people on your
sure.
shows.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh gosh.
so that's like the one that stood out the most as like, wow, these are wrestlers involved. Like I said, it wasn't a body slam or a clothesline or a choke slam. Like
Right.
any schmuck off the street could do that.
Right. Or a Uranagi in any Dwayne Johnson film.
Yeah,
But
yes,
yeah.
yes. uh, that's a good one. There's a top wrist lock in one of the Friday the 13th movies,
Oh, that's great.
which is highly technical for a horror movie. I found it was not Jason applying it. It was
Okay,
the
that's
cop.
fair.
It's
That's
the
fair.
cop throws it on.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I'm always surprised how often it comes up. I think when I talked to Joe, I said about one in every 10 movies has a distinctly pro wrestling move in it.
Oh, that's awesome. Uh, uh, let's see. I'm gonna look at this list real quick too, because there's actually in talking about this, there was at least one. Um, now, quick question, just to make so, do you have these up as videos where you discuss them?
Yes. So I
Okay,
have a YouTube channel, and anytime I see one of these, I make a video. It's basically a breakdown of the maneuver. Not in any kind of serious info. You're not going to get
right.
serious education from this, but it's a breakdown of hey, here's this pro wrestling move, and yeah. So look on my YouTube channel. I have a
Hmm.
playlist called Grappling with Demons, and
Awesome.
that's where they are. It's I think I'm up to almost 50 of them. I found.
Oh wow, that's awesome. So I think that's actually gonna wrap us up.
Yep.
This is again similar to the very first question in this interview. It wouldn't be a wrestling podcast without this. And you did touch on it already, but this is your time to put some plugs in, sir. Where can people find you?
You can find me primarily right now on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/arcade of terror. Get on there, subscribe, like. That's what they say. Do those things, but most importantly, watch the videos.
Yes.
I'm not
Uh,
I'm not making these for myself. Somebody watch them.
that is
Uh,
fair. That's great. Yeah. Sorry.
it's free. That's the free way you can support Hallowicked. Just watch
Heck
my
yeah.
videos.
I love
I
the
think they're
sound of
pretty
that.
fun. So
Yeah.
also on YouTube. So I have my Arcade of Terror, which
Mm-hmm.
is a video game. I'd be a stretch to call it a review show. I barely play any video games. The intent is to play video games that usually never happens. Uh, yeah, check out my Arcade of Terror. All right.
All right. We will. I
Uh,
will definitely. I
yes.
definitely will. I. Yeah. Uh. Gosh, I'm all out of steam on this. I'm just very happy to chat with you. Appreciate you coming on to chat about wrestling and horror with me. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you, Hallowicked, and all glory Nazmaldun.
Pleasure was all mine. All glory Nazmaldun, and just also like to say, not wrestling currently. Last time I was in the ring was in 2021. Uh,
Right?
Next week, back to training,
Okay.
back at it. 2024. I'm gonna, unless I die the first week of
Mm,
training, which is always possible,
yeah.
but especially so since I haven't been in a ring in 2 years. Yeah, see me out there, hopefully.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. All glory.
All glory.